Good afternoon, everyone. And I think we'll particularly start by thanking those who have joined this session really early. We will just give a minute for everyone to join and settle in, and then we would get the session on the road. This is the NBA-SBL Business Law Weekly, Season 3 episode. I believe today the installment we have for you, which I believe you would really enjoy, is episode 13 of season 3 of the NBA-SBL Business Law Weekly. We, of course, today would be focusing on PEBEC's regulatory reforms, in focus, shaping Nigeria's business landscape. We have a very interesting presentation by the speaker today to just help us dive into what PEBEC is doing, what PEBEC has done, what PEBEC is doing, and what PEBEC is still set to do in the regulatory space in terms of reforms. But to get us on the road this afternoon, I'd just like to remind you that today's session is powered by the Regulatory Engagement Committee. And I have here with us this afternoon the chair of the Regulatory Engagement Committee, Ms. Toyin Bashir, a partner at Banwo and Godalo. So, Ms. Toyin, over to you.
Thank you very much, Max. And I join Max, who, of course, is a member of the Regulatory Engagement Committee, to welcome everyone to this session. Thank you for making time out of your busy schedules to be here. Please permit me to firstly acknowledge the presence of our chair, Mrs. Ozofu Latunde Ogemedia, who is on the session this afternoon, and as well as council members who are also present at this session this afternoon. We would also like to welcome our guest, Mr. Samuel Upong, who is the representative of the PEBEC Secretariat, who is on. And please also permit me to use the opportunity to also felicitate with the PEBEC Secretariat on the recent appointment of leadership in the person of Dr. Jumoke Oduwole as the Honorable Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment. So the Regulatory Engagement Committee, of course, was set up this year by the leadership of the NBA-SBL. It serves as a platform to foster collaboration between the NBA-SBL and public sector, essentially forging collaborations with regulatory engagements so as to ensure that there is a cross-fertilization of ideas, and also to foster more participation of our colleagues who work in the public sector in attending, NBA-SBL events and programs. And indeed, the Regulatory Engagement Committee had commenced efforts to essentially establish those relationships earlier this year. And we've witnessed some measure of progress in attendance of the International Business Conference earlier this year. So on that note, because we want to utilize most of the time for the engagements, I again welcome everyone for this engaging session. And I would now hand over to the chair to hear some words from her. Thank you all very much.
Thank you very much, Tony. Thank you, and good afternoon to everyone. Thank you for joining this session. I just want to give my thanks to Mr. Upong as well for joining us. We're very excited to have someone from PEBEC join us. PEBEC is one of the organizations that the SBL has partnered with over the years in terms of legislative reform. And so it's really exciting for us to hear directly from PEBEC. I also join Tony to congratulate the PEBEC team on the elevation of Dr. Oduwole. We're quite excited every time we have a technocrat step into, the cabinet. We know that there's a lot to expect, so we wish her the best. So without taking more time, I will hand over back. Thank you, and I look forward to the session.
Thank you very much, Chair of the SBL, for those words. Indeed, SBL really loves Dr. Oduwole. She was actually at our last conference as well, hosted a very interactive fireside chat. So we definitely are looking forward to that. So ladies and gentlemen, without wasting further time, let's just dive right into the meat of the discussions this afternoon. I know that for anyone who is interested in the regulatory space, we know that the coming of PEBEC has been largely a watershed moment. The SBL has always been a partner in that journey. I mean, Toyin has always been a part of PEBEC as well. So it informs our excitement about today's session. So without further ado, I'll just introduce our speaker this afternoon, Mr. Samuel Upong. He's a senior reform leader, regulatory innovation and technology at the PEBEC Secretariat. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, welcome Samuel. Samuel, over to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much. And thank you, everyone. We're all excited at the Secretariat when we heard the news as well. It's an exciting day. We're still all very happy to have gotten that news. And thank you also for having PEBEC here. I would quickly share my screen. All right, thank you. Okay, PEBEC I would like to start with the basic definition of what it stands for: Presidential Enabling Business Environment Council. And our mandate is we have a dual mandate, which is to remove bureaucratic and legislative constraints to doing business. Overall, our mandate is to give Nigeria an ease of doing business environments. Thank you. The composition of PEBEC is, we have the chair, His Excellency, the Vice President. We have Secretary to the Government of the Federation. We also have representatives of the National Assembly, judicial representative as well as state government representatives. We don't work in isolation. We very well in collaborations with private sector, all levels of government, development partners, and diplomatic corps. We also engage in all arms of the government, the National Assembly, the judiciary, and so on. We have more than 50 priority MDAs that we work with at PEBEC. The collaboration goes on and on. Later on in this presentation, I'm going to be showing us some of the work that we've done with the MDAs and then also how the different programs have affected the business community. Some of our successful reforms cut across regulatory reforms, legislative reforms, judicial reforms, as well as subnational reform. To mention a few, PEBEC has done some very, very notable and credible reforms to affect the business community in terms of business registration, establishment of small claims courts that gives access to justice, and then also starting a business and trading across borders, and then specific work that we've done in the different ports. We have 5 major work streams internally, which we execute with. There's the regulatory work streams and regulatory innovations and technology work streams. Sorry, can you still see my slide?
Yes, we can see a slide, but kindly just run it as a show. You just click the button, yeah. Yes, that one.
Thank you. Thank you. Regulatory innovation and technology reforms. We also have our subnational reforms headed by the subnational work streams as well. We have the legislative and judicial reforms, strategic communications and stakeholder engagement, as well as our new PEBEC Business Champion program. So quickly, let's talk about the compliance ranking that we do, which talks about, it affects the priority MDAs that we track, where we talk about the work that we've done in terms of the Business Facilitation Act, and also some of the accelerator programs that we have also done as well. The Business Facilitation Act 2022 is a legislative intervention by the PEBEC, which codifies Executive Order 1 and amends 21 business-related laws to remove bureaucratic constraints to doing business. So these are some of the amended legislation and the codification of the EO1. We have the Companies and Allied Matters Act, the CAMA. We have Customs and Excise Duties Management Acts, and a whole lots of amended legislation. So the benefit of the Business Facilitation Act is, number one, to provide incentives to encourage growth for micro and small medium enterprises, and also efficiency and transparency in the public sector. And then also to promote best global practice adapted for best fit in Nigeria. And then we also have effective tool for speedy amendment of business-related legislative framework. Some of the interventions that we've done, I'd like to mention the MDA compliance reporting that we release biannually. So every 6 months, we've released the half year. For example, in 2024, we released the compliance reports that tracks more than 50 agencies. And then we check efficiency, we check transparency, and then we check specific reforms that speaks to the seaport and the export experience as well. And then agencies are also check on the use of ReportGov, a platform I'll talk about shortly. And then our methodology in tracking the compliance reports, in tracking the MDs for the compliance reports, we have 4 key efficiency measures, which we check the submissions, the timeliness of the submissions made by the agencies, and then also we check for the cleanliness of the reports. A lot of this, a lot more on our methodology can be seen in the report that we release every twice a year. And our efficiency also measures for 70% of the entire MDA score. So this is our 2023 MDA ranking reports on the compliance reports that was released. So 10 out of 39 ranked agencies scored 50% or more in the full year report released in 2023. In quick comparison with the half year reports that we have released this year in 2024, we have 28 of 40 agencies already ranked more than 50%. This points to a very, very good adoption of the methodology that we're using in collaboration with the MDAs, and shows a lot of movement in terms of compliance. We did an accelerator program that lasted 90 days. We called it the 90-day reform regulatory accelerator program. And it ran from February 20th to June 19th and was extended by 30 days. And we saw a lot of movement during this extension. We had 24 reforms and then tracked 36 MDAs and 14 ministries. 9 MDAs of the 36 MDAs that we tracked scored 100%. 28 out of 40 ranked agencies scored 50%. I also like to state that most of the figures that we see in the results concerning the RRA has to do with the role of the leadership in believing in reforms. And as a result of that, we saw a lot of agencies, we saw a lot of movement, we saw a lot of compliance as well in the reform activities that we put up. Thirty out of 36 agencies also ranked 50% and above, and this is massive compliance, and hopefully we'll talk about the impact of this later on. So let's talk about just a little bit on regulatory impact framework, impact assessments, and then quickly we'll talk about also the regulatory landscape, what's happening and how that affects the business community, speaking particularly to some of the policies that we've had and withdrawn in a very short time in the administration, and then how the regulatory impact assessment framework is going to address a lot of flip-flop in the business community and then solve regulatory flip-flop issues among regulators as well. So in collaboration also with the MDAs, as inaugurated by His Excellency the Vice President, we're going to come up with a framework, a regulatory framework, which will check regulations before they are released to the public. Some of the things we'll be looking at is defining the problem and making sure that we understand the state regulators understand the problem statements, and also identifying different options just to be sure whether or not we need a regulation to solve issues. Excuse me. To solve issues. And then also talks about assessing alternative options. We don't always need regulations to solve all our issues. And then all of this, I'll just quickly show how the entire timeline of the work that we have to do. We inaugurated this in September 19th this year. And also we would launch the RIA framework in February 2025 as well. 2025, excuse me. I'll speak quickly about the Report Gov, which is a complaint and feedback platform, all right, for public business users and all to complain, drop feedback about issues that they may be facing in using the government services provided by the MDAs. And then they have 72 hours to resolve these issues. We've seen also massive turnaround time in complaint resolution using the Report Gov platform. PEBEC Secretariat will continue with its institutionalization vision to build and strengthen the capabilities of the agencies for the long time to sustain the improvement of on ongoing basis. We'll continue to collaborate with our different partners and with the MDAs, and then to continue to improve where we measure and then improve some of our reforms and activities and engage better as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Samuel, for that presentation, and thank you for packing so much into such a short amount of time. I mean, a few of the things you said there jump out at me directly, you know, as a business lawyer who engages with regulators. So, and I believe a lot of colleagues on this call also have the same issue. So there are some interesting things you have said, and thank you for, you know, giving us some idea of the mandate of PEBEC. But I would want to hone in a little on the half-year report that you spoke about. That's the PEBEC's half-year compliance report, where you carried out the 90-day regulatory assessment, the RIA. So what we want to ask is, how are these tools influencing the business environment in this year, especially considering the broader challenges businesses are facing? We are in a time of very rapid reform on all sides. So we just want to know from your own internal feedback you are getting so far, how are these things having real day impact that we as business leaders should know, recognize, and know how to leverage?
Okay, thank you. So some of the reforms that we've done, you mentioned BFE, and then you also mentioned the 90-day IRA program that we did. So we track, first of all, we track efficiency, we track transparency with the MDAs and service providers. We track, we check cost as well. So think about it this way, that service users now understand processes required to obtain approval, understand processes required to obtain licenses. And this understanding comes from a place of transparency, because we now have, for the MDAs that we track, processes on their website. We have very defined, clear SLAs on their website as well. Then we also have clear, cost. The cost of rendering that service or obtaining that service is also clearly written on the website. So it's transparent. When SLAs are developed and shared on the website, then we know that service processes are transparent. Then also the 90-day IRA program was an accelerator program to also check for these things that I have mentioned: transparency, efficiency, and also checked for specific reforms as it affects specific sectors. For example, the seaport now. So we've seen a lot of impact in that area, all right, because these services are now available. It's now clear what the requirements are in order to obtain services from these MDAs, all right? So then again, second, I'd like to add that apart from all of this impact that we have seen, we can also, we do third-party assessments, and then we have on the way a third-party assessment that's going to happen, which is a regulatory impact assessment coming up, where we'll have actual empirical figures of how PEBEC works affects the business community. But so far, we can tell that there's massive impact.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Samuel. Of course, for those of us from the outside, business lawyers, even members of the private sector who engage with regulators, for us is always about getting the end result. But a few things you touch there really ring loudly with us lawyers, particularly because we always want to know what is the procedure. We want to have a clear route map when we engage a regulator. And sometimes it's a little frustrating when you have to drive to the regulator's office just to get the simple information on costing, on procedure, on protocol, on timing. But having those things on the website is a huge plus. That alone for a lot of us who engage regulators is already maybe somewhat like 70% of the job done. But now let me hone in on what really concerns us as lawyers. We often encounter challenges and bottlenecks when we work with regulators on behalf of clients. So beyond just the specific interventions you've told us about, we know that PEBEC also does some work possibly behind the scene that we might not be seeing. So specifically, I want to ask, how is PEBEC helping to advocate more effectively for the private sector to reduce these obstacles? Because we know some of these obstacles may be in the laws. Of course, BFA came and did a lot of rejigging of those laws. But like you mentioned to us, sometimes you do an assessment, it's not necessarily an issue of regulation. It might be an issue of practice, might be an issue of cost, culture of that organization. So we want to know, what is PEBEC doing from the advocacy part with these regulators behind the scene?
Okay. I earlier on mentioned how PEBEC works in collaboration also, and also get private sector feedback. First of all, how we know the pain in the private sector is from this feedback system that we have, right? We have feedback from the private sector that we also collect via the ReportGov platform. Escalations come to us at the secretariat, and then we respond to these escalations as well. That is private sector feedback that we are working on. There are issues, there are problems, there are feedbacks. We intervene on behalf of the private sector using the ReportGov platform based on feedback that we've gotten. So we always encourage people to use the ReportGov because it's a very, very useful platform for us to understand what the impact of this work is. Yes, you may have the MDA say that, oh, okay, we've implemented these your reform activities, but then it's really not the way to go if we base all our source of truth on it. So some of the extra miles which we go involves when we get a feedback, then we work on the feedback. Sometimes we also do spot check on specific industries, some form of mystery shopping. And then we also, like I mentioned recently, are doing an impact analysis where we get the actual data of the impact of our reforms and then see areas where we need to work on. But generally, we use these platforms to, when private sector write to us, when they use the ReportGov platform, and then we work directly in collaboration with the MDs in order to solve these problems and then to improve service delivery.
Yeah, thank you very much. I mean, I was interested when you mentioned using also mystery shopper as one of your toolkit. I think that's really important because that helps you to really gauge in real terms on ground some of the challenges that we private sector players have engaging with these regulators. But before I go to the next question, I just want to let the audience know we are going to have ample time for question and answers. I already see some questions in the Q&A function box. So please, I would encourage you, if you have a question, please put it up there. I already see one from Shola Quick Peters, a very interesting question, and we'll come to that shortly. So please, I encourage another person who has a question, please put that in the chat box. So now you just mentioned, Samuel, back to you. You mentioned a very important tool, which is the report.gov.ng. And I think that tool really excites us at the SBL because before now, we also spotted a gap, and SBL started what we call the regulatory clinic. We've had that run in our conferences since 2021, and it's been quite a success. In fact, the last regulatory clinic, we're so happy to have PEBEC, engage with us and actually help us out at the clinic. So I just want you to now hone in a little bit more on the specifics of how to use report.gov. So tell us both the front end and the back end of it. So as a customer, how do I engage with report.gov.ng? And then also I'd like to just for you to describe to us from the back end of it, when a report is made, what happens in the PEBEC secretariat, and if you let us know how to optimize using report.gov.ng.
Okay, thank you very much. So without going into too much details, you've already mentioned there are two parts to ReportGov platform. There's the front end and then there's the back end. The front end is where issues are raised, are reported, incidents are reported, and then the back end is where the management happens, where the resolution happens, where the case tracking also happens, where you also enlist ReportGov agents who are also the agents that resolve the complaints that are raised on the platform as well. So a user gets into the platform and then they have issues, they type in the issues that they have, and then every other details that is requested, submit the issues. They get notifications, and then it is immediately logged against the agency in which the report is logged against. And then tracking starts from when the user hits the submit button. And then once the case is resolved, the user is also notified that the case has been resolved. And then they also confirm that the case has been resolved by the MDA. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Samuel. Thank you for putting up a screen of gov.ng, because I think a few people on the call might not be aware of this, but I remember the first time I went to report gov.ng, one of the first things I really loved was the fact that, there's somewhat of a, the thumb down button. Okay, Samuel, can you hear me? Sorry, I broke up for a while. Can you hear me now?
Yeah. You
Okay,
I can hear you now. You froze for a bit.
Yeah, sorry about that. So I was saying, when I looked at report.gov.ng, I mean, the first thing I loved about it was the fact that right there, there's a public feedback, at least. The agencies doing well and the agencies doing poorly. I think that puts pressure on them. I was just saying jokingly that, speaking for myself and a few colleagues on this call, sometimes we also wish, beyond just the thumb down button, that, maybe PEBEC could also carry, some whip as well and apply to some of the regulators. I mean, that's just a joke, but we really love the fact that the future, gives that public feedback, so that instantly regulators are also under some level of pressure, because compliance is rewarded right on the platform, and a deviance is also, adequately at least highlighted and somewhat punished on the platform as well. So let me move to another question now. And still staying on particularly the private sector, because for us lawyers, really, our interest when it comes to regulatory engagement is really ensuring that our clients who are private sector players can really, get the best of the intervention of regulators and not get stuck in the process. So this year, the private sector has been hit with several high-impact legislative and regulatory shocks. I mean, we know that currently there's a whole suite of reforms to the tax law currently pending in the National Assembly. So what I want to ask is, many of these reforms have destabilized the business environment. People are really trying to pick up, their business models are already in tatters. How is PEBEC addressing these contradictions and navigating this challenge to create a more stable business climate? Because we understand PEBEC is, in a sense, shooting at a moving target, because PEBEC is creating reforms, new reforms are happening. So how is PEBEC really putting all of this together and ensuring that we do not end up with a chaotic situation?
Okay, thank you. And to start with, there are things to put in place before regulators release regulations to the public. Okay. And they do this, right? We've seen the disruptions that recent policies have created, like you mentioned, this year or in this administration, if I may. What PEBEC is doing is to make that process easy. All right. I mentioned earlier on also that His Excellency, the Vice President, inaugurated the Regulatory Impact Assessment Framework. This analysis framework is to help regulators make sure that there are checks and balances in looking at the prerequisites before releasing or before going to a regulatory option to begin with, right? Because not all issues have require regulations to solve, right? So what we are doing is to have a unified framework, which is the minimal requirements all regulators would need to go through or to pass or to check before a regulation is released. So by doing this, I mean, this would encourage regulators to work hand in hand also. It's against working in silos. And this will also make sure that the minimum check required to release a non-disruptive regulations or non-disruptive regulations to the general public is checked. So this, we strongly believe, is going to curb some of the disruptions that we've seen recently. And the timeline, which I showed us in the presentation, at the time we launched that, all regulators are going to pass through or use this framework, say benchmark or I say check before regulations are released. So we don't hope to see a lot of or some of the things that we've seen earlier on this year.
Well, thank you very much for that, Samuel. I mean, that's really comforting to know that there's some proactiveness on the part of PEBEC just to ensure that we don't have the problem before we start working back to get a solution on that. Now, before I get to the question and answer from the audience, I see few questions already coming into the Q&A box. There's another interesting development that happened a little earlier this year. I remember the first time I read about it, I was quite intrigued, which essentially is about the World Bank's new approach. They are now launching the Business Ready Ranking Report, replacing what we knew before now, the ease of doing business reports. So with this, with the introduction by the World Bank of the new Business Ready Ranking Report, how is PEBEC positioning Nigeria to meet the requirements and improve our global standing?
Okay. Thank you once again. The work, PEBEC mandate remains PEBEC mandates. So PEBEC didn't stop working because of the ranking that was discontinued by the World Bank. Yes, we're excited about the new ranking, and we know that by the time evaluation is done, Nigeria is going to be in a good place. And why is that? That's because the work never stopped. The work never slowed down in any way. We've had some very, very good achievements in terms of reform implementations. We have impact in the business community. We know that already the business environment is influenced as a result of the work that we do in PEBEC. Oh yes, we're excited, we're waiting for the ranking, but work really never stopped. We've been working around the clock at PEBEC.
Well, yeah, thank you very much. I mean, indeed, I remember when the ease of doing business ranking stopped. I mean, a lot of us were wondering what next with PEBEC, but like you said rightly, we've seen PEBEC even bounce back, even become a lot stronger. I mean, we're also quite happy that even with the change of administration, PEBEC never missed a beat. PEBEC just kept going. It's really comforting to know that PEBEC is really pushing, and that when the new report is released, that Nigeria would also still be able to rank high. I mean, for us, like we said, we are enablers of private sector players who are trying to play in the economic space. So we're always happy when things work smoothly. So at this point, I'll just jump into some of the questions. I see some really interesting questions already. I thank everyone who has posed the question so far. So I'll start with Sholakwe Peters. Sholakwe Peters is asking, just first of all, commending you for a presentation, and then asking, we often see certain conflicts with the internal processes of regulators versus the provisions of the law. How can PEBEC address this? And I really, align myself with this question from Sholakwe Peters. So how do we, sometimes you see that there's a practice in a regulator that's not really written anywhere in the law, in any of their regulations, but sometimes it's an exigency because of, challenges they have. Sometimes it could be, an infrastructural issue that makes them have some of a process that somewhat deviates from the, regulations and the written law. So how is PEBEC able to identify these discrepancies, and what is PEBEC doing, about addressing this?
Okay, I'll delve just a little bit, give a little bit details into what I have mentioned. You see, this question also speaks to the flip-flop we talked about, the issues around policies released and then retracted. So the details into the framework I talked about, I talked about the regulatory impact analysis framework. One of the key requirements also is to properly analyze a problem that you're trying to solve as a regulator. And then also, after your analysis, another additional work you would do is to check for existing regulations, whether it exists. All right. So in doing some of this analysis, which is part of the framework items, you would say and know that, oh, okay, am I beyond boundaries of my enabling laws? Am I beyond, it's an agency? Am I also going to have an overlap in my regulation when I release it? All of these checks and cost-benefit analysis, a whole lot is contained in the framework that is going to directly assess the concern raised in this question.
Yeah, thank you very much for that, because indeed, just like you said, I mean, we know a lot of back workers, and I'm sure when PEBEC does some of your mystery shopping as well, these issues will be thrown up, because you would see, when these issues come up. There's another very interesting question from Laide Ademo. So Laide is asking, I would like to know what PEBEC is doing regarding the Nigerian Trademarks Registry. Commentator pauses and takes a deep breath. I think more needs to be done regarding this MDA in terms of automation. For example, we have not had registration certificates issued this year at all. I mean, and this is October. Then publication of trademarks should be automated. We should move from hard copy prints. This helps for prompt delivery of service as well as cost savings. Of course, I know you mentioned the trademark registry as one of the regulators under the purview of PEBEC. And I mean, I fully am aligned with this question because I do some work with them, and well, a lot is left unsaid. But just, what has been your experience? What work has PEBEC done with the trademark registry? And, how do you think PEBEC can help with some of these complaints? I mean, there are a lot of them. I know Laide just summarized them because if we give the full details, I'm sure we'll spend a whole session on that alone. So what can we do about automation, in the trademark registry? And of course, by extension, if we talk about other agencies that PEBEC is working with in terms of automation and ensuring that things move smoother.
Okay, thank you. First of all, PEBEC is big on automating business processes. Then would you know that, okay, you're impacting the time it takes. People don't need to go physically to a place in order to obtain approval. People don't need to go physically to a place to obtain permits. A lot of a whole lot of automation and how it affects service delivery. Okay, we are aware of some of the glitches as mentioned with trademarks. Actually, in our previous accelerator programs, we've worked with trademarks, right? And trademarks is one of the we work with trademarks, and one of the things we checked is also automation as well. All right, we track them in previous accelerator programs, and we can tell that, I mean, there's no system without glitches. But what I can say is that PEBEC is working with trademarks as one of its priority MDAs in order to resolve the tech glitches by way of recommendation, by way of supporting using our internal tech-enabled capabilities to resolve some of these issues. So we do hope to see movements in terms of the platform, make sure it's more solid than it is now. But they are within, they are one of the MDAs that we track. We've worked with them in the past in order to ensure that there's stability, and we'll keep working with them too.
Okay, thank you very much, Samuel. I mean, I can bet you that a lot of the speakers on this call, if PEBEC really does, finally succeeds with the trademark registry, would really, be very appreciative because it's been quite tough. I mean, of course, we also have some idea and appreciate some of the constraints they have because they are still not an independent agency regulator. They are really essentially a department within the government bureaucracy in the Ministry of Trade Investment, and of course, which is why we are double excited that Dr. Duole is going there. So we want to believe that in no time, a significant change there. So a few more questions have come in. We'll just take them. But the next question is really important. It speaks to the future. So I'll take it for last from Nsikak SEN. I'll take that for last because I perceive it speaks to the future of what PEBEC has in store for us. I'll go to the next question. Is from okay, no, well, that's just asking about certificate of attendance. Yes, you would get your certificate of attendance for this. Then Barnabas Henry asked a question. Okay, maybe he says this is not a question, but he's saying the guest should please take back to PEBEC that the slow output is affecting businesses badly. Most foreign clients think we're a joke as they find it strange how we can't deliver on most requests. So I think this is sort of the feedback from Barnabas Henry that we should know that a lot of us who engage with regulators are really not happy at the moment. I mean, we appreciate the work PEBEC is doing. There's certainly been an improvement. I mean, nobody can doubt that. A lot of things have really improved, but we know that there's still quite a lot to do. So this takes me to the question I want to take last, which is from Nsikak Essien. So Nsikak Essien is asking, what other tools can be adopted to enhance a predictable and consistent regulatory environment? What I perceive from this question is that Nsikak is saying, we've told us what PEBEC has done so far, but what are the new things, the new frontiers PEBEC is looking at? So I believe that's what Nsikak is asking. So what are we expecting next from PEBEC? What are some of the thoughts PEBEC has on really taking us to the promised land finally?
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that question. So the regulatory framework, I keep mentioning it because it's a big deal. It's massive. And it's a work in progress as well. You see, the same way we track the agencies that we track today, and we work with them in collaboration too. Our work continues. It doesn't end there. There's a whole lot to be done. Even in the Business Facilitation Act, there are a whole lot of amendments that we still need to see be in play in the MDAs that we work with. So the framework, which I mentioned earlier, it's massive and it's going to be an ongoing thing. It won't be one of those things that are done and jumped. That's not our style. So when the framework is out, there are going to be more tools that we'll release in order to continue to work with the MDAs in terms of that. So it's one of the biggest things. And then we've only just started that regulatory framework in the regulatory space. There are other things in the legislative space as well. There are other things in the judiciary space as well. There are other things in the in PEBEC Business Champions work stream that we're doing. These are for big businesses as well, beyond small and medium scale businesses. So there's a whole lot. What we've heard us talked about here today just affects the regulatory space within the regulatory work stream. So PEBEC is doing massively a lot. As we release these things, we never stop working. I hope that the person that asked the question, and for the interest of everyone on the call and Nigerians, we would see the impact of our work as usual. And I'd also like to say that a lot of the work we do, yes, I know the person that asked the question said it's a bit slow. Yes, you may look at it that way depending on what scale you're looking at it, but be sure that we're getting measured and our work is, the impact of our work is spreading well over.
Yeah, thank you very much. So I see that even though we had said that would be the last question, but somebody has snuck in, anonymous Santedi has snuck in a question. You know, when we used to be in university, they talk about the VCs list. So after admission list is closed, the VCs list still comes, and the ministers list from Abuja. So we'd let the anonymous attendees question come in as part of the VCs list. So he's asking, and he's touching on another very sore nerve. You know, the NBA Regulatory Engagement Committee. You know, when we're set up, we, for instance, have a joint working committee with the Corporate Affairs Commission. So the anonymous attendee is asking, can PEBEC look into the decline in CAC response with regards to registration, being a key regulator for doing business? In fact, CAC is sort of the gateway to doing business in Nigeria. So is PEBEC, you know, really examining what is happening in CAC at the moment? And yeah, are there any takeaways for us?
Yes. Yes, thank you for that question. In fact, very useful because we've been working with CAC, from inception, and we are aware that there are glitches. We're collaborating with CAC actively to resolve these issues. We know that some of the issues have to do with majorly response time, technology, technology platform availability, and all that. We are working in collaboration with them to fix that. It's not a problem that is there forever. It's solvable. We're nearly there.
Thank you very much for that, Samuel. I mean, indeed, you are right. When you say with CAC, we know CAC needs a lot of work because there's a lot of back-end technology, and they've been moving from one service provision protocol to the other. Of course, we know the CAMA 2020 came complicated, some of that and all of that. But we really look forward to PEBEC helping us do some more work with CAC, because they are really one of the anchor regulators. As it were, they are really the gateway into the economic space in Nigeria. So before I wrap up, I would be recognizing, on the call with us this afternoon, Mr. Rotimi Oguniemi, who is one of the council members of the NBA section on business law. I would also want to remark that for anyone who is joining this call, you are not yet a member of the NBA-SBL. This is your opportunity. You should absolutely join the NBA-SBL. The NBA-SBL Business Law Weekly is just one amongst so many wonderful initiatives that the NBA-SBL has to upskill lawyers in the business and commercial law space, and also to help us come into opportunities, come into the right networks. Today we've had Samuel from PEBEC really help us unpack PEBEC, and I must commend you, Samuel, for doing this in such a short amount of time, but really helping us unpack a lot of things. For those on the call, myself, I've always followed the work of PEBEC, but you've said a lot of things today that has given me a lot more insight as to PEBEC. Report.gov.ng, for instance, I believe everyone on this call should immediately think of beginning to use that, because the more we use it and the more there's data available to PEBEC, I believe that also helps PEBEC's work. And if nothing else, it also puts pressure on the regulators to really put their act together and ensure that they move from the red quadrant to the green quadrant on report.gov.ng. So before I wrap up, I would, and I'll be calling our council member who is on the call to give a vote of thanks. Samuel, I'll just really come back to you and say any parting shot, any parting words, any words of encouragement you have for the NBA-SBL, any thoughts you have about how we can collaborate more with PEBEC, how we can assist PEBEC from the NBA-SBL to fulfill your mandate.
Okay. Did you say you come back to me? Or?
Yeah, so I want you to just give us your, what will essentially be your final thoughts, essentially how you'd want NBA-SBL to be of better help to PEBEC. If there are ways you think SBL can collaborate with PEBEC, or SBL can help to enhance the work of PEBEC, we'd just like to hear your parting words, and also, what message you should take back as SBL from PEBEC.
Oh, yes. In the area of legislative reforms, we would appreciate all the support that we can get as we continue to work. There's a lot of work that PEBEC is doing in the area of legislative reforms. So we would well appreciate continued partnership with SBL to achieve these goals. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Samuel. It's been such a pleasure having you today. Please, as you go back to PEBEC, please take our love back to PEBEC. Of course, the celebration for Dr. Oduwole, you need to let her know that SBL is on board that celebration. We are over the moon, with that news, because Dr. Oduwole has always been gracious to us at SBL. She's been, I can't remember a conference I've had without having some sort of support or representation from Dr. Oduwole and from PEBEC as well. So we really look forward, of course, to the next phase for PEBEC as well. And, we've heard some of the things you have said. I'm sure my chair of the SBL is still on the call and would have taken note of some of the things you have said, so that SBL will retool itself to become, a more effective partner to PEBEC. So before perhaps I call Mr. Rotimi Oguniemi for the vote of thanks, since the SBL chair is still here, I don't know if perhaps the SBL chair will want to say a word to some of the things that Samuel has said. I don't know, Madam Chair of the SBL, would you want to say anything else before I turn over to Rotimi for the vote of thanks? In terms of responding. Yes.
No, thank you, Max. Just to say thank you very much for the session, but I think Rotimi is prepped to do the honors, so please, Rotimi.
Okay, thank you very much, Madam Chair. So I'll just hand over to Rotimi Oguniemi to give us the vote of thanks and bring this to a close.
Thank you so much. I really want to say thank you to everyone attending today's insightful session. This has been a very, very wonderful audience, and it's been a valuable session on PEBEC's reforms in the regulatory space. Special thanks to the SBL Regulatory Engagement Committee. They are our hosts this afternoon, and particularly Toyin Bashir, who is the chair of this exceptional committee. Thank you so much. And of course, our very esteemed guest, Samuel Upong. You have delivered so much value today, and we have taken a lot of notes, and I am sure that your parting shot, it's been very well received within the ranks of the SBL, and you will be hearing from the SBL very strongly. Thank you so much. Of course, to our very able Max, thank you for excellently moderating the session. I will just say that it's clear that PEBEC's intervention, plays, and it's playing a critical role in Nigeria's evolving business environment. Today's discussion has shed light on key areas of the impact PEBEC is making, and we've all heard areas where we look to PEBEC for improvement. And so, as we continue these conversations, I encourage everyone to actively engage with the ongoing reforms to drive a more business-friendly Nigeria. Let's stay connected for future sessions of the Business Law Weekly, and there's more to come. I would like to say thank you again and have a great day. Let me turn it over back to Max, just in case there are other parting shots. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Rotimi, for that vote of thanks. And of course, in the chat box, the link to join the NBA-SBL has just been placed in the chat box. So I encourage everyone, if you are not yet a member of the NBA-SBL, please do jump in. Like we told you, the SBL has a lot lined up to really upskill the business law space in Nigeria. Rotimi already alluded to next week, we are back for the SBL Business Law Weekly, Season 3, Episode 14. It's a very interesting discussion. The fireside chat on the strategic use of interim measures in arbitration is hosted, of course, by the NBA-SBL Arbitration and Alternate Dispute Resolution Committee. And we have a really great lineup of speakers. So please do ensure you keep time with us. And of course, once you become a member of the SBL, you would get all our emails for all our activities. There are a lot of other activities currently ongoing at the SBL now. The tourism committee, for instance, has a wonderful retreat planned for Abeokuta. So do ensure you join the SBL and enjoy all of these events that we have lined up for you. So finally, I just want to say thank you. And you can always reach out to us on the SBL. You can go to our website if you need any further information on the SBL, or you want to join a committee, or you want to participate in any of our programs. Thank you all. Thank you again, Samuel. And I also thank my chair and other members of the NBA-SBL Regulatory Engagement Committee. Adetola Adele is also here with us, and as well as Oluwatoyin Oladejo. Toyin, I want to be sure I didn't get your last name wrong, because I know a change has happened recently. But even if I did, I know you'd forgive me in advance. So thank you all, everyone, again, and see you next week at the 14th episode of the 3rd season of the NBA-SBL Business Law. Oh, yes, and then the Roundtable on Tourism event I mentioned, that's the flyer up on the screen now. It's on the 26th of October. I think registration has closed, but perhaps you send an email to SBL, maybe you'll get on the VC's list, on the minister's list, and you might still be able to sneak into that wonderful event as well. But you can always reach out to the SBL. And of course, let me also thank finally, of course, the anchor, our anchor at the SBL, Mr. Endurance and Rex as well. They have always been a strong supporter and a backbone. Thank you for organizing this and allowing the Regulatory Engagement Committee have this slot this afternoon. So thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful rest of the week. See you next week, Tuesday, 2 p.m. for the next installment in the NBA-SBL Business Law Weekly. Thank you all and goodbye.
Thank you, Mark. Goodbye.